A crackling flame serves as the backdrop to a mysterious man mentioning the goddess of the sun, Karya. He looks at the flame emanating from a candle and talks to it as if it is the goddess herself. The man proceeds to take us to a flashback where he mentions how Karya showed herself to the world in all her flaming glory. It so happens that the goddess of the sun had shed her light upon humanity, and it gave rise to years and years of blood and iron. However, she has also gone on to achieve other titles, such as the goddess of the night, and even the goddess of their immortality, as they would look towards her as their only source of hope and spirit whenever they would go to conquer their missions. The narrator explains the various battles and wars which are complemented by visuals that are bright and truly inspirational. However, the mysterious man brings us back to reality and says that every story has a dark side, just like the one we are being told right now. But instead of giving us a direct answer, the man gives us a couple of questions to which he does not expect any answer. This is because he doesn't think that anyone would have cared if Karya also brought darkness along with the blessings of the sun. However, this is just a way to introduce our hero, who is making his way through the woods and is shown to have blue eyes that sparkle almost as brightly as the sun itself. He looks at us with a sense of wonder, and we are then taken to the actual beginning of this story. Now, we see a barefoot boy walking through the forest, but the huffing sounds confuse us as we transition straight to the bedroom of Master Hildegard, who seems to be suffering from some kind of sickness. An attendant goes to her master and tries her best to wake her up, but these efforts are of no use, as Hildegard swats her hand away in a rush of emotion. It appears as if Hildegard is experiencing a vision that has been haunting her for a while, so the attendant decides to call for a doctor who can attend to the young master's issues. Hildegard looks at the setting sun with a spark in her eyes, and then we move to the lively city where our herb-selling hero Urkin goes head-on with one of his local herb buyers named Mr. Jenkins. It seems like there is an issue with his herbs, because they didn't last for as long as he had promised. This is clearly a case of fraud, but Mr. Jenkins decides to play the victim, and simply accuses the herb boy of being a fraud, rather than admitting he was reckless in the way he took care of his plants. Despite our hero trying his best to reason with the herb buyer, he is reduced to a simple northern with one biased line. However, before Erkin can even respond to this statement, a blonde girl named Annetta storms into the store and accuses Mr. Jenkins of being a jerk for the way he is talking to our hero. This puts the herb buyer in a fix, and he tries to pass it off as a joke, but Annetta isn't one to just stand there and listen to nonsense. So she shoos the pesky customer away, despite Erkin still acting nice with him. That's when Annetta tells our hero that he's too sweet to be in this business because people will always take him for a ride. Erkin is a little embarrassed by the fact that he has to be supported by Annetta every time a customer is angry with him. But she reasons that Erkin is amazing with his knowledge of herbs, and it's simply a matter of him being from the north that's making people hostile towards him. Our hero laughs off the talks of classism, but he is clearly hurt by what Mr. Jenkins said to him, and we learn that there was a period of conflict between the north and the south, although the issue seems to have gone away for a while. Urkin tells us that this war had ended with his own place in the north getting conquered by the king of the south, who was named Mormeratta. After the brutal conquering of our hero's land, the selfish king even ended up giving himself the nickname of the Conqueror. However, the king was simply taking credit for the actions of his trusted warrior, the Witch of the Sun, Hildegard alias, who is the same person we saw struggling in bed a while ago. She was believed to be so overpowered that people believed she was blessed by the goddess of the sun herself. The narration continues to show us how powerful Hildegard actually was. Erkin goes on to explain that while she was named the Witch of the Sun, Hildegard was more of a knight who was simply performing her duties. While her fire blasts were strong enough to burn down a mountain, Hildegard was also blessed with immortality, so it was difficult to even be a match for her. However, this would lead people to either worship or fear her, so the Witch of the Sun decided to keep her identity a secret, known only to those who were close enough to earn her trust. Erkin explains that there is no fixed description of Hildegard, as she is believed to be tall and imposing by some, or soft and sensitive by others. It is also rumored that her aura could attract both men and women, but the only thing that is known for sure is the fact that she has been fighting ever since she was a little girl. After all the drama and all the blood spilled during her battles, Hildegard has decided to live a life of solitude, which was why we saw her in the mansion earlier in the story. Now, Erkin decides to stop his narration on the Witch of the Sun, because he isn't really interested in her past. He is about to go off on another rant about Hildegard, but he gets stopped by Annetta, who asks him if he's heard the news yet. It turns out that the royal family is looking for all kinds of workers that range from doctors to even sorcerers. She goes on to say that her sister is a knight, which means that she is also looking for persons of interest. But more importantly, Annetta has given Erkin's name as a reference because of his amazing herb skills. Our hero simply laughs it off because he doesn't think he's worthy enough to be selected as a knight. However, Annetta seems to think otherwise because she believes in the herb boy. Regardless, the couple gets interrupted when a couple of shady customers walk into the store asking about the owners. Both Urkin and Annetta state that the owners are not present at the moment, but something is definitely weird about these customers. The shady men ask the couple if they sell herbs here, so our hero decides to answer their question. He asks them if there's anything in particular that they're looking for, but the men simply stare at him with a sense of intent. It doesn't take long for them to assess Urkin and declare him to be from the north. Tensions rise as Urkin remains silent, somewhat confirming their suspicions to be true. One of the men places his hand into his cloak, suggesting he might pull out a sword, but our hero isn't going to let himself be bothered by something like this, so he continues to ask how he can help. It turns out that there is no need for a physical fight, as the man simply pulls out a piece of paper and tells our hero that his services are needed by the royal family. He gives Urkin a location and asks if he would like to hear an offer lying in store for him, while also adding some motivation by saying the reward will be very handsome if the task is completed successfully. The shady men walk away, but Urkin and Annetta simply breathe a sigh of relief because this was a very scary encounter for them. Annetta gets upset once again over Urkin's identity being used as a means to define him, but our hero thinks with more clarity and remembers that the shady men had swords that usually belong to the elite knights of the royal family. This makes him question what's going on, because he doesn't believe they will have any business with him. He thinks back to his horrific past, and we see a flashback where it is revealed that Urkin's mom and dad were actually killed by the Witch of the Sun. Back to the present, our hero takes a look at the piece of paper in his hand and holds onto it, because he believes this just might be the chance he's been looking for all his life. Now, we move to the nighttime where owls gather on trees, and the rustling of the leaves give way to an ominous sound. In the middle of this scary setting is Urkin, who has come to look for the shady knights. This seems to be the location mentioned on his paper chit, but our hero is unable to find anyone nearby. Just as he begins to doubt his sense of direction, Urkin hears some footsteps and is summoned by a knight named Griselda Elva. She refers to Urkin as a pharmacist and tells him that her master is in need of medical help. Upon hearing her family name, Urkin makes the immediate connection and realizes that Griselda is actually Annetta's sister. Our hero decides against bringing this up for now and simply asks how he can be of assistance. Griselda says that she will narrate the symptoms of her master and he will have to give her a solution based on it. The knight girl might think that this is a simple transaction, but Urkin doesn't agree with this method and states that he will have to see the patient to be able to assess them properly. However, Griselda states that she cannot allow this to happen as she has to follow protocol. The knight girl begins her description by stating the patient's health during sunrise and sunset. It turns out that the patient feels immense pain whenever the sun sets, but is back to normal whenever it rises. She continues by stating the patient's body becomes cold during the night and becomes very hard in that condition. This is confusing for Urkin, so he asks Griselda if this is some kind of riddle she's trying to get him to solve. The knight girl is definitely not the type to joke around, so our hero decides to give his honest opinion. He believes that this is some kind of sorcery, and not a physical illness that he can cure, because the condition Griselda is describing does not exist as a disease. The knight girl is not interested in logical reasoning, so Urkin tells her that he cannot cure the illness. However, he can offer a solution that will ease the symptoms for the time being. He pulls out some herbs and gets to work, but Griselda is suspicious of him after seeing how knowledgeable the herb boy is. She asks him how he educated himself, and he replies by saying his parents were experts at herb remedies. This prompts Griselda to ask Urkin if his parents are better than him, and he answers with affirmation, but also states that they were killed 8 years ago during the war. The knight girl doesn't seem too bothered by his tragic past, so Urkin continues his job and presents some dried herbs to her. He says that these can be boiled and given to the patient, or can simply be bitten if the going gets tough. Griselda doesn't seem to recognize these herbs, so our hero gives her a sassy reply by saying such items can only be found in the north. He walks away and declares that his work here is done, leaving the knight girl to stand alone. However, it turns out that her master is actually there with her, and as expected, it's none other than Hildegard herself. The knight girl is asked if Urkin can be trusted, and she tells Hildegard that he seems legit. However, considering that he is from the north, Griselda advises her master not to step out into the open because there are a lot of people out there who would love to have her killed at a moment's notice. The basic concern is that the Witch of the Sun has become weak, so she is no longer capable of defending herself if it ever came to that. It is understood that our hero can never know his patient's true identity because he has a valid reason to kill her as well. However, Hildegard notices the sparkle in Urkin's eyes and asks the knight girl if she noticed it. Griselda is a bit puzzled by this question and asks her master if she recognizes the herb boy. Hildegard simply shrugs it off, but she clearly seems to have remembered something after seeing Urkin. Now, we move back to our hero, who is helping his boss, Mr. Lindemann, with some items, but he is caught daydreaming on the job and has to snap back to his senses. Mr. Lindemann asks him if there's anything on his mind, and gets a little personal by asking if a lady lover is playing with our hero's heart. Erkin shushes his dirty mind and states that it's nothing, but he's actually thinking about Griselda. Some time has passed since he gave her the herbs, so Erkin wonders if his patient has recovered from her illness. He had seen this as a chance to get closer to the royal family, but at the end of the day, this just happens to be wishful thinking. However, when we move back to the castle, we see that Hildegard has gone back to her state of suffering because the medicine has run out. Griselda asks the maids if there's anything left, but is disheartened to learn that Urkin's herbs are no longer available. It turns out that Urkin was right to wonder why Griselda hadn't reached out to him, and now there's only the court medicine available for the Witch of the Sun. The night girl orders her maids to bring this medicine, but Hildegard angrily refuses the treatment and says that she needs the herbs given to her by Urkin. Griselda is shocked to hear this, but the Witch of the Sun is clear in her intentions and states that she will not have anything else apart from what Urkin had prepared for her. And that's the end of part 1. Like, share, and subscribe for part 2. I'll see you soon.